the CIA and the rest of the intelligence community back in 2007, Iran stopped even researching into how to make a nuclear bomb after George Bush got rid of Saddam Hussein for them. Everyone watching this knows that Netanyahu has said they're a few weeks away from a bomb for the last 20 years. This attack, they're actually more likely to pursue nuclear weapons now, whereas before they actually were not pursuing.
I think both of those guys are wrong. What they've done traditionally, and you've seen this, they've used the threat of pursuing a nuclear weapon as a foreign policy tool to gain concessions. Most states achieve the nuclear weapon, and not most, but those that have, and then get concessions. And Iran's a little bit unique in that they've always been just at the doorstep. They prioritize preserving the regime above all else, and so I think they have a carefully calculated foreign policy that they are going to always be threatening the pursuit of nuclear weapons so that they can gain concessions.
Welcome to Loaded Talk. I am your congressman, the third most popular candidate to ever be. I am Frank, along with me, as always.
What's up, planet Earth? I'm Bean.
Bean. Alright, so in the time that Charlie and I have tried to leave town and have a nice life, the world has decided to do lots of things. So we have lots to catch up on. Of course, it's all happening in the Middle East, Iran, Israel, and some other players involved. So we're bringing in our Middle East expert. He's going to give us classified secrets that he was given with his time at Central Command, and it's going to be great. He'll only be on the show once, for soon he will be in prison. Introducing retired Lieutenant Commander, Salty Millennial, Jimmy Drennan. What up?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Welcome. So, I guess I should have told you this, but I guess at first give us a little background about your expertise in the Middle East, or why we're even talking to you.
Okay. Yeah, so, well, first off, you notice the poster behind me, so it'll be really ironic if I divulge any state secrets.
We're rooting for it.
I'll try to keep this to public information only. I did 20 years in the Navy. I was a naval officer, served on ships, cruisers, deployed to the Middle East several times. That was sort of the first half of my career, and then the second half of my career I was mostly on staffs, and those staffs tended to be Middle Eastern focused staffs, all under the umbrella of Central Command, or CENTCOM. And I finished my career as a speechwriter / special advisor to the commander of CENTCOM, and retired as a lieutenant commander, and here I am.
All right, and when you would be giving reports and whatnot to the top dog there at CENTCOM, well, that guy would sometimes address the Secretary of Defense, or what would you do with that information?
Yeah. His boss is the Secretary of Defense, so that was usually where the information would go, or his counterparts in the Middle East, chiefs of defense, sometimes ministers of defense in our partner nations, and sometimes congressmen and women, secretaries of other departments. So, various VIPs and dignitaries that would either be his equals or his superiors up the chain of command to the president. And occasionally, he would be briefing the president, and he's, as you've seen in the news, probably he's been talking to the president a lot more recently. But yeah, so that was my job. Well, I was one of a small team that was tasked with presenting him with cohesive information, easily understandable. He as any senior military commander, is a wealth of knowledge and experience. But sometimes you need somebody to help you condense that and give you the 3x5 note card kind of thing. So that was my job, and then he would take that and run with it, and then so
All
that
right.
was that was it.
Well, cool. Yeah. VIPs, dignitaries, and sometimes Congress people too. All right. So obviously, what has been going on is go back a couple weeks ago. Trump is talking. What we talked about one of our last episodes was Times of Israel saying that Trump's on the phone to Netanyahu, being like, "Hey, we're not getting involved. I'm trying to negotiate a deal here, and so give me time." And so they go, "All right, well, we're meeting on Sunday. We're meeting on Sunday, and we're gonna have diplomatic talks." Well, I guess when that story came out, I guess 50 something days prior, he had begun negotiations with Iran, and he told them, we need this resolved in 60 days. You won't like it. It'll be so bad. You won't like it. You got to be resolved in 60 days. So on day 61, as we're waiting, I think it's a Friday, all of a sudden, Israel, out of the blue, sends a bunch of missiles to Iran and blows up a bunch of stuff kind of out of the blue. In response, Iran sends a bunch of missiles back. Israel intercepts a bunch they don't. And so here we are, staring down World War III, right? I guess starting there, the logic for the attack and the logic for the call for U.S. involvement is that Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon, days away, just like they were 20 years ago, days away from a nuclear weapon. And here, Charlie, will you throw the web up there? So, Jimmy, I've sent you stuff before with Scott Horton, who is the editor, publisher? I don't know, antiwar.com. Antiwar is his thing, so he's a journalist and all that. And so I'm going to play a little audio of an interview he did on, I'll get it in a second, on News Nation. There's two takeaways. One is whatever Scott says, and I want to hear Jimmy's kind of feedback on it. It's we'll take it in a couple chunks. It's a couple 1 minute chunks or whatever. The other thing is News Nation. I don't know. I guess you get this in satellite packages or something. These people this is like the worst talking head thing I've ever seen. This guy is so obnoxious. I don't know. I guess, you're in the Bush leagues trying to be Fox News, so you got to go more WWE with it.
Like unhinged.
It's this guy. Like we're not going to play the whole thing just because there's so much of it where this guy is just interrupting and being wild. So anyway, let's give this a play. Anytime.
Death to Scott Horton. Would you want them to have a nuclear bomb?
Well, the thing of it is, as I'm sure you must know, as the CIA and the rest of the intelligence community concluded back in 2007, Iran stopped even researching into how to make a nuclear bomb after George Bush got rid of Saddam Hussein for them. They had no more need for a nuclear weapon at that time. They opened up their books, and everyone watching this knows that Netanyahu has said they're a few weeks away from a bomb for the last 20 years. They still don't have a single one. And in February, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, put out the threat assessment, the annual threat assessment. Everyone can read it at dni.gov. And it says that they have not made the decision to begin to pursue a nuclear weapon.
You don't think that the Israelis have better intelligence? Come on.
Come on.
Look, there's nothing saying that late Israeli claims of recent advancement are true. No one else is confirming that at all. In fact, what they had all along, Leland, was a latent nuclear deterrent. It's the same as Germany or Japan or Brazil, where they had shown that they had perfected the fuel cycle. They know how to make nuclear weapons fuel, but they're not making it. And so what has happened here is with this attack, I know you want to hoist up your mission accomplished banner, but with this attack, they're actually more likely to pursue nuclear weapons now, whereas before they actually were not pursuing
Germany
them,
and Brazil,
despite your begged question in your question.
All right. So, no, I guess I can do that. All right. So, obviously, you were retired when any new Israeli intelligence could have possibly come out and all that kind of stuff. But how, as far as your assessments of kind of Scott Horton's diagnosis, just the facts of it, not necessarily the spirit behind it, I don't know. I guess, how do you feel about what Horton had to say there?
I think both of those guys are wrong. And
the talking head is definitely wrong. Sorry.
We could break it down into a couple of things. The Ayatollah has had a fatwa in place against the pursuit of nuclear weapons 20 years, and they kind of reference that. He's stated. I'm sorry?
I was just saying, unpack the fatwa for the...
Oh, yeah. So basically, the idea behind the fatwa is, nuclear weapons are against his Islamist ideology, publicly stating Iran will not pursue a nuclear weapon. But he's also said, and that has evolved over time, and in more recent years, he said, look, if you back us into a corner, we may be forced to get a nuclear weapon. What they've done traditionally, and you've seen this, they've used the threat of pursuing a nuclear weapon as a foreign policy tool to gain concessions. North Korea has done that, but they do it. Most states achieve the nuclear weapon, and not most, but those that have, and then get concessions. And Iran's a little bit unique in that they've always been just at the doorstep. And that's kind of, I think, the nature of their neighborhood. They prioritize preserving the regime above all else, and so I think they have a carefully calculated foreign policy that they are going to always be threatening the pursuit of nuclear weapons so that they can gain concessions. He said, 2007 was referenced in the video. Maybe they didn't know how to get a nuclear weapon then, or maybe they decided they weren't going to, but a lot can change in 20 years. I believe it has. So I think that they are, still going on that guidance from the Supreme Leader, but the Supreme Leader is not going to be around forever. Who's his replacement, his successor? How does that person feel about the pursuit of a nuclear weapon? We don't know the answers to those questions. Although recently, interestingly, he did select his top picks for his successor. A council, when he dies, a council will get together and pick the next Supreme Leader. But he went ahead and made the step of saying, "Here are the people you can pick from."
Like the Pope.
There will be white smoke. I just don't know what it'll be from a.
We burned the Jew when we picked the leader. We burned the Jew.
They're on the doorstep. Can they? I would guess. I don't know. I would guess that they have the technical expertise, or at least they did before Israel knocked out quite a few of their top scientists. But generally speaking, they probably have the capability to produce a weapon. Obviously, you need the fissile material, the uranium, and that's a part of this is that you'll see a lot of public reports from IAEA, and I generally trust those. They talk about the 60% enriched uranium.
Right.
You need to get to 90% in order to have weapons grade. And then we talk about how close they are to a nuclear weapon, like weeks, months. That's really talking. Usually, people are talking about the time it would take for them to go from the 60% enriched uranium to the 90% weapons grade enriched uranium, and that's really a matter of weeks. They've always been that close, and I mean, I say always. For a long time now, they've had enough of that 60%. Now CENTCOM assesses that they have enough. This is pre, B-2 bomber strike I'm talking about here, but they had enough to produce 10 weapons, enough to produce 90%, highly enriched uranium worth of 10 bombs, 10 weapons. But that's just to get to the material, and then there's another step, at least one more step. You have to produce the weapon, and that's where you get that's where the technical knowledge and expertise comes into play, and the equipment and the facilities that they may or may not still have. But that is, there's kind of a couple of different timelines there. It depends on what kind of weapon they were going to try to produce.
Okay. So
you guys know that. I'm sorry, just real quick. There's the. I'm just going to finish and stop. There's the gun type weapon, and then there's the implosion type, and it's kind of like the Fat Boy and Little Man. Those are the one's a gun type, one's an implosion type, and if they decide to go for the gun type, faster, less stable. I don't think they could put it inside of a missile kind of thing. So there's trade-offs.
What is an implosion type?
That's a more sophisticated design that we and the rest of the world have used since the Nagasaki. I think it was. I could be getting this backwards, but I think Hiroshima was the gun type, and then Nagasaki was the implosion type. That's Fat Boy and Little Man. And whatever one, the implosion type design was the one that carried forward. It was the better design, but it takes more effort, more expertise, yada yada yada. The gun type is still valid. Oppenheimer, the first test, that was a gun type.
Still pretty effective.
Yeah, exactly. So, in other words, they're on the doorstep. They've got enough material, and let's say they said that the Supreme Leader gave the thumbs up. No more fatwa, or a new Supreme Leader, whatever. Okay, a few weeks later, they've enriched the uranium they need, and then it's a question mark of what next. And then that's not taking into account all the intervention that would happen from Israel and possibly us.
So it sounds like when we've been hearing this many months until they have a nuclear weapon, this many weeks, this many whatever. So that's literally everyone's just saying from the enrichment rate that the Iranians have reached today, it would only take this much time to enrich to the 90%. That's basically what that seems like. That's always meant, basically.
Yeah, they've got this stockpile of 60%, and then when you go to 90%, that I'm trying to get my hands on the screen. That 90% would be less over. You would enrich it to 90%, so you get less overall kilograms of material, but still enough to produce 10 nuclear weapons.
Okay, and so like if they were sitting at 60% enrichment for 100 years, then for 100 years that'd be 2 weeks away from blah blah blah, pretty much. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, from 2 weeks away from. 2 is a placeholder, but X weeks away from having the material they need, and then plus the whatever timeline to a weapon.
Gotcha. Here, let me play this other part of Horton's thing. Yeah, pull me back up so I can find my spot, and then we'll chat some more. Let me see. I don't want to go. I hopped because they talk so much and they're so obnoxious. I think it's somewhere around 5.
Switcher's off already.
Huh?
Switcher's off already.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's earlier than this. Let's see. There we go. I think somewhere around here. And I apologize to everyone for whoever this News Nation person is. He's just the worst.
Just real quick, if I could read a quote to give a better concrete answer.
Oh, sure.
From CENTCOM on that last question. It's this from their posture statement. So this is public information. They send it out to the world. Should the regime decide to sprint to a nuclear weapon, it's estimated that current stockpiles and the available centrifuges across several enrichment plants are sufficient to produce its first 25 kilograms of weapons-grade material in roughly 1 week, and enough for up to 10 nuclear weapons in 3 weeks.
Okay. So kind of same thing. It's just 1 and 1 with the rest in 3. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool.
And those plants that they mentioned, that's Fordo, Natanz, Esfahan.
Sure.
And we know we don't know exactly what happened there, but we know.
We'll get to it. Don't jump to the end. No spoilers, Jimmy. All right, throw me back to my stuff. Let me see a stupid interrupting face. All right, let me see. I got real confused too because when I hit play, I started hearing Jimmy's voice, and I was like, I don't think I'm in the right spot in this clip. All right, hold on. 8 times a day. Loading.
You want to switch?
Loading. Oh yeah. That doesn't matter. I want to play. Come on.
Forgot about it. But I continue. The issue here, and the reason the world is safer, is because once Iran got a nuclear bomb or was beyond the point of no return, they could act with absolute impunity. They could do all the bad things you said, and the world couldn't do anything to them because they had a nuclear bomb.
Here's the thing of it: we had a deal before
that they kept breaking.
No, that they were not in violation of, that Donald Trump tore up at Netanyahu's behest in 2018. Under that deal...
Why do you hate Benjamin Netanyahu so much?
If they decided to break out and try to create a nuclear weapon, it would have taken them at least a year to get enough fissile material to even make one, much less complete the process of making one. That was the deal Trump tore up. At that time, any enriched uranium... Why don't you let me finish? Anytime they enrich uranium...
Because half of the things you're saying isn't true and the other half are wrong.
France, they had no stockpile of enriched uranium because they shipped it all out to France to be made into fuel rods and then be shipped back into the country under the old deal. It was after Trump withdrew from the deal at Netanyahu's behest that they then began to stockpile the enriched uranium that you're referring to that makes them that much closer to the bomb. Trump could have just got back in the deal and called it the Trump deal instead of the Obama deal, and all of this would have been fine.
It was a bad deal to begin with.
Yeah, right. Who cares about that? Yeah, see, I'm going to go back to this, and I don't know what else. I'm trying to do things. All right. So, a lot of that is historical data. How are your feelings about his assessment of, I guess, the Obama years through today, as far as Iranian stuff?
Yeah, no, I think he's right. I think Scott Horton is spot on that part, on the deal. I think his facts are correct that they only after we exited the deal did they sprint toward the amassing that much 60%. But what they're missing, what he's missing, and what the news station guy is not interested in even getting to, is the Iranians were killing Americans during that time. They weren't in violation of the nuclear deal, but they were using their proxy network, which we call the Iranian Threat Network, to to kill us, to endanger our interests, attack our partners, attack shipping, all kinds of things, really bad things. So they were, and of course we were funding that indirectly by lifting the sanctions,
right.
And so a lot of that made no sense. Now, if there may be better ways to handle it, sure, but
real quick,
their Iranian threat network was really running wild under the umbrella of the JCPOA, the nuke deal.
So when Iranian threat network, I mean like Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, the triple H.
Yep. Plus what we call either Shia militia groups or Iranian aligned militia groups in Iraq and Syria, and there's just a bunch of those, but we kind of put them under that umbrella term.
Gotcha. That's occasionally ISIS, occasionally Al Qaeda.
Well, you'd be surprised. I guess sometimes their interests align. They hate us, but they hate each other as well, because Al Qaeda and ISIS are Sunni extremists, and the Iranians are Shia. So they sometimes it's the enemy of the enemy kind of thing.
Well, I know we flip flop in different regions, so I didn't. It felt like Al Qaeda was flip flopping in regions too. Maybe it's just us that are doing the flip flopping. So I think in Syria right now we're pretty good on Al Qaeda, right? Is that the Bashar?
Yeah, it's here. Yeah, well, so he's done.
Yeah,
and,
now Al-Qaeda's in charge.
I don't know much about. I think it's HTS is the acronym that is now in charge, which I'm too rusty on their allegiances, but it's easily shifting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Trump took a picture with the new leader, all smiley, and he talked about his how he had a brave history and all that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty sure that brave history was Al Qaeda fighting against us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, and so this is. I'm not going to play more of that clip just because it's obnoxious. But at some point, the News Nation guy will say, "Oh, Iran attacked our people. Iran attacked our people." And you talked about how the Iran network, the Super Friends of Iran network, as you called it, they were attacking our people. And of course, we know. I mean, it's not like a super secret. The old Triple Hitch and beyond they get lots of funds from Iran, of course. Especially when you get to Hamas, there's a lot of funds that come from America, arguably more from the UN. So to point out Iran is funding things that the U.S. and the UN are funding, it's kind of hard to use that as evidence of malfeasance, But at some point, the idiot talking head, so granted source, he's just like, well, look, Iran struck first, and so that he basically says because Hezbollah, Hamas has been doing what they do, and I guess the Houthis doing what they do to Israel, around Israel, and out of Yemen and all that kind of stuff, that technically that was Iran striking first, which would justify. So Israel did not strike first. Israel was responding, is a point this guy makes later. Does that ever really line up in reality of nations justifying an attack?
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate oversimplification, especially in this conflict. I mean, you cannot say somebody, A struck B first in almost any conflict, and let alone the Iran-Israel, the broader, the existence of Israel conflict. I mean, and then it's just too complicated, and it goes beyond my knowledge of the nuances and of the history. But I can tell you, it didn't start on October 7th, 2023.
What?
That just so happens to be, that just happens to be a really convenient reference point, and that was Iran's proxy, Hamas, doing horrible, barbaric things that needed to be responded to. Mm-hmm. But to say they struck first, I mean, that's ignoring a lot. That's really stretching my limits of believability. So,
and just let's say the world started October 6th, right? And Hamas once again is funded by Iran, the UN, the United States, and more, I'm sure. October 7th, they did what they did. It was horrible. And Israel's like, hey, we're going to kill you, Hamas. Could you justify, I guess outside of us in Afghanistan and Iraq, can you therefore say Iran struck first because Hamas gets funds from Iran when they also get funds from UN and the US,
Yeah, you actually, I would, even if you begin history on October 6th, I have a hard time saying Iran struck first because I don't know that anybody has provided a clear, command and control link of that specific operation, which I'm forgetting the name of, but it doesn't matter. It's whatever they called it. I think the general assessment was that Hamas and Sinwar particularly acted on his own. I don't know, but if you go with that, then how can you say that Iran struck first when they may have been reacting to something? but there's the nuance, right? They created this Iranian threat network. They basically built up Hamas and their capabilities, and you're gonna plead ignorance when these people that you've armed attack your enemy. I mean,
isn't that what we all do?
That's definitely what Iran does. That's part of their model. And I think what Israel has basically said is, you don't get to plead ignorance. You've put the gun in their hand and they pulled the trigger, but we're going to hold you accountable. And we've done the same thing. We've said to Iran, we're going to hold you accountable.
Well, but I mean, but Iran's not the first nation. I mean, like, granted, they might do it in a different way, but as far as having like proxy networks, hell, we went with, we hopped in Afghanistan for the Soviet Union. I mean, Ukraine arguably is just proxy for us right now. And so it's not, we put lots of guns in lots of hands, and we always say that wasn't us, So it's not, and Russia does it, China does it. So it's not a new thing for a proxy to be totally disconnected from its funder.
Yeah, you just have to. It helps to be the world's leading superpower and know that nobody is going to come after us directly. I think Iran overplayed their hand, and they were a regional power, if not the regional power, at least from a perception standpoint. Sure. And Israel called them out on it, and I think that now what you're seeing is some of them being exposed. They were going on the assumption that if their proxies did these things, then nobody would go that hard at them directly. Mm-hmm. They would fall behind look, we didn't do that. That was them. Blah blah blah, which worked very well on us for many years. And I think Israel and the current government with Netanyahu, in the wake of October 7th, a lot of things changed and their calculus changed. They decided to go for it, and it wasn't. I don't know how it all went down in terms of their decision making, but you could see it progress from Hamas to Hezbollah to a little bit of the Houthis. The Houthis really going after them, and so they had to respond. But I think in their mindset, they would almost wish the Houthis didn't exist, because they wanted to go Hamas to Hezbollah and then ultimately to Iran. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they planned that all along or it evolved, I don't know, but I think that they probably had a certain mindset of, okay, we are not going to live under this shadow forever. After October 7th, at some point they said, it's time to go all the way. And we'll see. I don't know if they, with us or without us, are going to go for regime change, but it's being talked about.
Sure. Yeah, and of course, that's a whole different conversation. We're not great at that. We did it in Iran once, and it really helped things. Real quick.
Yeah.
I'm helping.
Did y'all see, I guess he's called the Crown Prince or whatever. He's related to the son of the Shah or whatever. That was...
yeah, he's offering his services.
Yeah, and so his pops or whatever definitely wasn't installed by the CIA. Real quick, can anybody guess where the son of the Shah lives currently? Charlie, guess first.
Israel?
Okay, Jimmy, your turn.
New York City.
No, it's a suburb of D.C. in Maryland. Sometimes you gotta stay close to, I don't know, Langley or something. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally unrelated. He's just trying to help.
Just trying to help.
Yeah, it is funny. It's like the CIA. Like, there's an old salt in the Iran room. He's been basically ignored for years. Hold on, I did this once. I still got him. Show play.
He's flipping through his Rolodex, his actual Rolodex.
His actual Rolodex. So Israel begins all this stuff. One thing. So I was kind of following this.
Wait! You summed that up by saying Israel begins all this stuff. Wait, I don't think we settled on who started it.
Well, the direct attacks on Iran began.
Okay.
So Israel began these direct attacks on Iran, and Iran responds, and then Israel responds, and it's going back and forth, And this is one of those that I was kind of following more in real time than most everything else, just because of the internet. But Twitter's got this open source intelligence account. That's great. They just post things. And the thing is, they'll post stuff that the leaders put up there. So they'll put out official statements. They'll put out, reporters. They put out, a little bit of everything. But this before any U.S. involvement at all, other than kind of talking around the outside. One thing I noticed is that my respect, or I don't know, my view of the Israeli government's, I guess how truthful they are. I always have doubts about how honest a government is being, but watching in real time when you tune in after the fact and everything gets glossed over, you get the Vaseline on all the wrinkles, it looks like whatever you're told it looks like. But so when post October 7th, Israel started in Gaza, of course, and lots of things are getting destroyed. Of course, they go, hey, military weaponry is being hidden in homes and hospitals and whatever. And so they shoot something out of there, and we shoot back, boom, boom. And you go, well, that makes sense. If you launch a missile out of someone's living room and you're going against Israel, they're going to put a missile right into the living room after they intercept it. You've done nothing, and the entire building's gone. So you go, well, that makes sense. So at some point during this, there's a report, Israel has different missile launch sites in different places. One is Tel Aviv. And so at some point, Iran gets a missile through the defenses, and it lands in the proximity of this missile site in Tel Aviv. Well, as soon as the Israeli government responds, Netanyahu, a general, I believe, they all use the same words, that Iran is going to pay for sending missiles into populated civilian centers. Now, there's been no other missile that has struck during this time, according to Israel and Iran and all observers. And so it is this spinning of, if we send a missile into a country, it's going to a military target. No matter where a missile hits in our country, it's a civilian target. And the thing that gets me the most about it is just all the selling, because it used to be like Israel hitting into Gaza, they're going to hit something. People in Gaza shooting into Israel, they're not going to hit anything. It's just going to get intercepted. It's not going to be a big thing. And so, Israel will take out a building or something, and then people go, hey, there's kids in there, and they go, hey, they're hiding weapons, and you can see the videos online. They are hiding weapons, But then to see that Israel's actually kind of doing the same thing, maybe not in someone's living room, but, apparently it's close enough to where people live and work that when someone strikes it, they go, hey, that's a war crime. So, watching that happen has really, really soured me on Israel to a new degree. Because I knew there was no honest brokers over there. I knew everyone's kind of a liar. But watching it in real time is when you kind of get, at least I was getting grossed out about it, where I get just it's okay, you're trying to rewrite this. And everyone does it, of course. Everything's always one-sided. We're the heroes, they're the villains. It's just, I guess we're getting enough data now that you can watch people do the rewrite, and it's gross. And I don't know. I wonder how that's going to serve Israel on the international stage. I can't imagine how anti-Semitism goes when you're starting a war and trying to drag another nation into it, and then also just blatantly lying as if you are Hamas, if you are any other leader that we say we don't trust. Putin's lying, this guy's lying. We go, okay, well, Netanyahu's lying too, just blatantly, clearly, without a doubt, lying for the point of manipulating us. So it's an evil lie. Anyway, that's just, I guess, a side effect. So anyway, so this whole thing's going, and so at some point Trump is saying, like, all right, let's cool it down, everybody, and he wants to do a ceasefire. So he goes over there, and or he calls people, and he arranges this ceasefire. He's like, all right, in 12 hours, we're going to have a ceasefire. And the idea is kind of an old idea, I guess, where back before cell phones and the internet and everything, you might need some time to communicate to everyone. In this case, I don't know, it was 12 hours or 6, however many hours it was. But immediately, like, all right, ceasefire. And then it was just explosions everywhere. And then almost like every ceasefire agreement ever made between Hamas and Israel, in the last minute, they go, oh, ceasefire was broken. The ceasefire was broken from this one missile. But one of the most telling things, an interesting thing, it was Trump's reaction to this whole thing. So here, we'll play. The audio is a little bit low. C-SPAN cannot afford microphones.
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel was committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
All right, so strong words from, as Charlie has often called him, Daddy Donnie.
Daddy D's Ron DeSantis.
I have serious things to say about that, but have you seen the remix of that clip?
I have not seen the remix of the clip.
Is it something that you're able to pull up, or should we just move past it?
We'll probably move past it. Charlie, see if you can find it on the Chrome window. While we're, what? Okay, so I know that you have found our relationship with Israel to be sometimes perplexing, and I know that you've found that Trump as a commander-in-chief can be also somewhat perplexing. I guess what's your reaction to Donald Trump's reaction?
Yeah, it's a great question. Nothing that he does surprises me anymore, but it is a surprising. It's in the context of other presidents. It's surprising. It's unique. I don't think any president in recent memory has even come close to openly criticizing Israel like he just did.
Right.
In a very pragmatic way. I mean, he's fighting for a ceasefire. They violated it. So did Iran. I don't know who shot first. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
In his perspective, it sounds like, hey, we're trying to do this, and you guys are violating a ceasefire. So I found it, to be honest, I found it refreshing. But like you said, you alluded to just a little while ago about governments lying. I don't know the tactical details of the incident you were referring to, but I agree with you on the premise that governments tend to lie, especially on social media in the context of warfare. You have to think that what Trump is saying is there's a subtext to it. I'm not saying he's lying. I'm saying, everything he's saying, everything Netanyahu's saying, everything that the Ayatollah is saying, there's some truth to it, but there's a reason for why he's saying it. There's a subtext. There's a message being sent.
Yeah.
Or some plan, some negotiation. So he's trying to get leverage. there's always some other level. Anytime any government figure in the context of warfare, you can't just take them at their word. You have to try to see if you can figure out what it is that they're going for. And Trump, from what I've seen, he's very good at that, because it sounds like he's just saying, look, stop. But I'm wondering what is it that he's really, he's willing to criticize Israel. He's willing to rebuke them. No president before him, I think, has been willing to do that. What does that mean? Obviously, he hasn't abandoned Israel. But I find it interesting because, and I think you alluded to it, I think that the relationship between us and Israel is certainly complex, and it's frustrating to me at times because I feel like Israel is driving the foreign policy bus and we're in the passenger seat. When it should be, at least for our interests, it should be the reverse. We should be the ones deciding how we protect and secure our national interest.
Sure.
I think sometimes, especially in the Middle East, it feels like we are in support of their interests. Now they're very good at it, and it's an existential fight for them. So they live in a different world than we do. So to some extent, I understand it. But this is where I think it's really interesting. Maybe Trump senses that, or I don't know. It's definitely a shift in foreign policy tone to hear him say that.
Yeah, and to your point, he is still very much in Israel's court. I mean, Netanyahu is about to go to court on Monday for some of the corruption charges or whatever, and I don't know. I have little faith at all that anything's gonna stick to that guy, especially in Israeli court. But regardless of that, Trump came out with a full-throated, very long truth today on his Truth Social. Just full support Bibi Netanyahu, great guy, worked together on this great thing, great guy. So it is like, it struck me in that whole thing, kind of like, so this is kind of my read on it. Maybe it's naive or something, but Trump's like, all right, we're going to do the ceasefire. Whatever he said to these people, they go, yeah, ceasefire. He goes, cool. And then he thinks, like, let's get the PR going. He already started it. It was a 12-day war, and it's over because I'm so great. That's the messaging. Saves the day, all that kind of stuff. And then, all of a sudden, he just turns his back for a second, and Israel does exactly what they do. And Iran does exactly what they were probably going to do anyway, because you said it didn't start for 12 hours or 6 hours, however many hours. So it's like just like Russia, when the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire, and all of a sudden it's just like drop a bunch of bombs. I think he looked legitimately frustrated in that he thought that, at least with the Netanyahu side of things, that he was dealing with another like-minded person who was thinking in a similar way of like, all right, we want to do we're going to do a ceasefire, and we're going to lay off. Like, let's get the like, now we've done everything we need to do. We've done the meat. We've done everything we talked about. Everything after this is sort of gravy and sort of just, just piling on, like there's nothing strategic after this. It's lesser strategery, and so I think when Israel turned around and did their thing, where suddenly it was like, basically the same thing we're dealing with Putin or Zelensky or Khomeini. And I think it was one of those things where it was this frustrating, eye-opening thing where he goes like, holy shit, like everybody's acting like this. Like, are we making a deal or are we not making a deal? Is kind of what I got from his point of view.
And I think if he did think that, I think it would be naive on his part, because for Netanyahu's perspective, it goes back to, they have pursued something post October 7th that now looks like they are done dealing with Iran. Mm-hmm. And it's not a negotiation. It's not a deal. And it looks to me like they're going to go all the way. I don't know, but I don't have no information on that. But
you think they're going to try to topple the regime?
Or get rid of him some other way, and maybe there's a plan in place afterwards. Maybe there's not. I don't know, but it does seem like they have continued to. It feels like they've made a decision. We can't coexist with this regime.
Yeah. It also,
which I don't necessarily disagree with. I don't. The ceasefire was good diplomacy, but I think that the Ayatollah was more than happy to abide by it, because they'll just go back to their gray zone kind of Iranian threat network stuff.
Sure.
They don't want to be trading missiles with a major power, but that's not the way. I don't think that's the way Netanyahu views it, and he's not our buddy. He is looking out for his own interests, and we are the hugely important big brother to them, and so he's, the government of Israel, that's their number one concern, is how do they make sure that the United States of America has our back, and they do that through a lot of different ways.
AIPAC.
You can see all the different avenues that they use. Netanyahu is part of that, and so the fact that we sent our B-2 bombers in there after they started kind of paving the way. Now, whether that was coordinated or not, I don't know, but it's not coincidental. I just you have to view it in those terms. They have to have us behind them in order to survive, and they couldn't take out their nuclear sites, and it just so happens that we did. And I don't know how that went down.
Well,
but they have to have us.
Yeah, we'll hop to that in a minute. And as far as Trump being naive, and he might have been, but you think about the first term and the time since, whether it's AIPAC or whatever, or dealing with Congress people or whatever, you get a trip out. They go, come out to Israel, see what it's like, all this kind of stuff. So you get sort of a nice vacation. There's lots of beautiful sights in Israel. And so, Trump has had Netanyahu as a diplomatic partner, a statesman, all this kind of stuff. Until now, it's it's been whatever. It's been like the proxy network sending very things that Israel can handle, and sometimes we've picked off some missiles or some drones or whatever. But it's been nothing. It's very easy to handle stuff, and so it's one of those things that's been easy to have Israel's back. You go, well, they shot at you, he shot back, whatever, it makes sense. Even post October 7th, what's happening in Gaza is pretty extreme, but you at least have October 7th to fall back on, and you go look, release the hostages, and it all ends, and so you can kind of justify it. And it's kind of one of those things where you go, that's my homie over there, and he's got this thing he's going through, but it's not really my business, And so I think this is the first time, at least in the Trump years, where he's really had to work in line and depend on Israel behaving in the way that he expected them to, which I think he expected them to be a lot more, like a Western power might be, more American, more English, more French even.
Yeah.
And then he found out, I was like, oh no, they're more of a Middle East nation. They're a Middle East nation. They're a Russia. Charlie did find a remix, so I know I dropped a lot and I'm not getting a response, but that is a right that I give myself because I'm the host and I can do that. And you told me about this one.
Fine. I had so many good points.
Yeah, all right, here we go.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. You understand?
The internet wins again.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. You understand that? Okay, now you have 12 hours. You don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. The biggest load that we've seen. You know what we basically have two countries that are
I hope they play this in the all-night raves in Israel.
That they don't know what the fuck
Oh, you know they
They
won't.
don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't
Yeah.
know what the fuck they're
Alright,
doing.
I'm over,
You
but I can't hit
understand
stop. Okay. I have to stop. That was great.
It's a good summary.
It is. Alright, where was I going to go to next? Okay, so we, so as we talked about, I don't know if we need to watch all this. We can. We'll see. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the actual, so Israel's doing all this stuff for a while, and Trump is coming out and saying, give me 12 days to negotiate. I mean, that's what they're putting out there. 12 days, 12 days, 12 days. And Israel goes, we can't wait 12 days. Like, we're going to send some people in. And so, we start hearing about military bases being like, hey, no friends and family. Why don't y'all get out of here? Ships are moving, planes are moving, things are moving. And then, as I'm in the air, landing, which I'm glad I flew when I did, not when you did. As I land, I see that as I was landing, we dropped 6 big old bombs on the 3 nuclear sites. Of course, at least one. Are all 3 of them built into a mountain, or just one?
All underground. I don't know if all of them are into a mountain.
Okay. Well, either way. And then, so we do this, and they say that these bombs that we made, these bunker buster bombs, were basically made 15 years ago, specifically with these Iranian sites in mind. And then I heard, which I think old Raisin Kane is showing footage of this, that we created a replica of the mountain underground in the desert with a little vent on top of it in order to test these things, where we basically dropped, like in our deserts.
Yeah.
But we built some sort of replica underground so that we could like drop one of these and make sure it works, I guess. And so this 36-hour flight to Iran to drop the bombs with the refuelers. I guess this thing was written up 15, 17 years ago, just in case we ever had to take out these sites.
This sounds like a recent movie that came out.
You talking about Star Wars?
No, I'm talking about Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah, Star Wars, yeah.
I was thinking about there's a vent.
Neither of you. Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys lead that train of thought, but I'm not gonna disagree with either one of you.
Well, so I guess as far as the operation goes, logistically,
Midnight Hammer.
Oh, God, I forgot the internet went wild with that one.
MC Hammer. Still, so they sent some planes westward or west, so I guess go over the Pacific. That drew attention, and then they sent everyone else east. Was the play, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Logistically, a pretty interesting operation, right?
Yeah, the diversion. Somebody asked me. It was a good question. How do you create a diversion with a stealth bomber? How do they see it?
That is a good question.
I think you have to advertise it. I don't know exactly how that went down, but my guess is that they probably had to broadcast, "Hey, we're sending bombers over the Pacific," something like that.
Well, I know it was on Twitter. They said, this many B-2s and a refueler are heading west.
Just
so,
tweet it.
Yeah, I mean, it was on Twitter. So, I think they registered their flight path. It wasn't like one of those things where they go, we're not telling anybody. They go, we'll go ahead and register this,
Yeah, well, that's because nobody would see them, so they have to kind of wave their hands like, "Hey, I'm over here."
It's like when Justin, who was in the submarine, said they used to do the hide and seek games with you swole fellas, and that they get bored because y'all couldn't find them, so they'd start banging all the holes with hammers and stuff just to try and get something going.
That's our strategy, and then eventually they'll poke a hole in the hole with one of the hammers.
strategy. I guess let's say, throw me the thing. Let's watch this video that old Raisin Cane put up there. And did you ever work with General Dan Kane?
I'm sorry, all I think about is the restaurant.
And the chicken. What do you think of old Dan?
Yeah, I think he's a really smart guy. He was tough to work for. He was a 1-star at the time. He was the deputy commander of Special Operations Command Central Region. So, acronym SOCCENT. It's the Special Operations kind of sub-component of CENTCOM.
Sure.
And he was the deputy commander, and I was working as a advisor for the commander. So I interfaced with him quite a bit, and he was tough. I mean, he always had any product that I ever gave him, he had a lot of feedback, and it was kind of like a lot of back and forth until I got it right. But it was I thought it was always fair and thoughtful, and I found him to be pretty good leader, smart guy. I don't know. I don't know if any of that factored into why he was picked, other than his call sign. And but and he single-handedly defeated ISIS. So there's that.
Oh snap! Breaking news, real quick, before we go to Raisin Cane. Wander Franco is found guilty of sexual abuse of a minor in Dominican Republic.
Don't say the R word, please.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say it anymore. 2-year prison sentence. So that's new. Wander Franco, Rays former shortstop, is I guess going to spend a couple years in the pen. Okay.
And then back to the Rays.
And then after that, back to the Rays.
No.
He'll only be like 24 or something. We're doing pretty good. I don't know what the Yankees are doing today, but if they lose, we are tied for first place in the AL East.
Hell yeah.
All right,
Doesn't matter.
Let's see. Well, that's as long as we don't hit World War III, and then we have to send them all over to fight. All right, let's see what old Raisin Cane has to say. But yeah, I do think his call sign probably had a little bit to do with why he was chosen. And watching an explosion. And the Hot Pocket.
Is that the test site?
Yeah, that's what I think that's.
See, that could have been a clip from Top Gun 2.
Yeah. Oh, look at it go into the ground.
It's busting that bunker.
At some point. Yeah, that busted that bunker, all right. That went in the ground.
I've heard about the bombs that count floors.
Yeah, I think it does it.
Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space.
Woo! Nose.
So it hasn't blown up. Oh, there it blows up. Wow.
Yeah, his play bar was over the caption. I think it was 5th floor, maybe.
Unlike a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure.
Well, he's getting elevated.
In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast, ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over.
Well, he does seem like he would be interesting to work for.
He's
Grab some coffee with him.
brass tacks.
Yeah, that is. When he was talking, I felt nervous.
Serious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I don't know if they said how high up the bombers were when they dropped the weapons and or how big those vents were, but you can kind of imagine that's a long drop into a very small space.
The technology, I mean, in order to get that, especially 6 times, it does really speak. I mean, really, even before this, like, all the targets Israel was taking out, whether it's military leaders asleep in their bed, nuclear scientists maybe also asleep in their bed. Yeah. Then they started like hitting just individual jets one at a time, parked in different hangars and stuff. I have to admit, like, all right, so you could tell Israel was done with all key sites, especially after we dropped our bombs, right? And then Trump's like, all right, it's time for peace. And they go, well, and so they shoot a couple. One of the things was the doomsday clock in Tehran. It's like, this is when Israel will be destroyed. And so they're like, we're blowing that thing up. And then they blew up just the front door of the prison they use for political prisoners. And but even Iran, like, not as precise. But, I mean, the missiles in this whole thing, the precision has been pretty incredible. Like,
it's a different ballgame from what Hamas and Hezbollah have been firing.
Or even the beginning of the war, like with Ukraine, like we were sending over all that artillery, and like we had, I forget it was General Dynamics or one of the other people, but he came and talked to us, and so he's telling us just the volume of artillery sent over compared to what we hold or used to hold or whatever. And so, one of the things he hammered home was like, the U.S. doesn't really fight wars with artillery anymore. We have precision guided everything, and like this really showed that. I mean, it's odd it's hard to imagine a trench war.
Yeah. I think at some point it would, a world war or whatever you want to call it would eventually devolve into something like that. Because you can look at burn rates of precision munitions, and you can see how if it really were a major war, then you probably get to where at least one side would be forced to go to other kinds of munitions or tactics. Because even us, we've been saying it. We need to ramp up production, and we're not even really directly involved. It's the phase 2 and 3 of whatever that major war would be. I don't know what it would look like, but it would be different.
Sure.
Especially with the drones and the FPV drones and the fiber optically connected drones that can't be jammed. Ukraine really has innovated at a crazy speed.
Ukraine has. Wait, Ukraine has, or they've been provided with very innovative drones. I mean,
don't forget Israel helps with that technology.
We certainly have given them a lot, but they have done some innovation of their own that I don't think that we necessarily would have. I think you can give them some credit for how they've used the technology that we've given them.
Okay.
Necessity is the mother of all invention, right?
I guess we were like, here's a $50,000 drone. I did not see flying it directly into something. No, we were going to save that. But yeah, I guess you could just fly it right into stuff. That's another way to use it.
No, that's true.
All right.
It all is designed to blow stuff up. That's what militaries do.
That's right. Blow stuff up and kill people. All right. So I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play a little press conference with the Secretary of Defense. It's just a minute. It's a question that I think is a fair question, and we'll go afterwards. Trump kind of addresses it, but basically it speaks to. So we do this attack. And we go, okay, that's it. We're just doing that, nothing else, and we hope that it sticks, and no one really knows what's going to happen. Russia comes out, Dmitry Medvedev, whatever. He came out and he said a bunch of stuff, including one thing that's for certain, even though Iran was not trying to get a nuclear weapon, at this point they will be, and there's lots of countries out there that are willing to provide it to them, which out of the 10 points he made about this exchange, that one has me concerned. Just when Russia goes, lots of countries out there willing to provide nuclear bombs to Iran, and you go, well, which country has the most nuclear weapons on the whole planet. Like, who could lose 600 nuclear weapons and still have the most nuclear weapons on the planet? And then you go, oh, it's Russia. And they just happen to know of a bunch of different countries willing to sell. So I thought that was something we probably should stay aware of. But the other thing that Russia was saying, and some other people were saying after this, was that we did these strikes and they were totally ineffective, right? I think the reality is most all of us have no idea how effective it is. If we've like, there's a lot of stuff you can know about countries and foreign policy and all sorts of stuff without necessarily going to those places. As far as the contemporary results of a bomb dropping down a vent hole in a mountain, and the extent to which it damaged the secret facility underground that mountain, it's going to take a while before we really know. I imagine no matter where it was, it got buried under rock. I'm willing to bet that. Anybody that's down there probably got heated up pretty good. But anyway, this was one of the other questions about the effectiveness of the strike. So there's two things in this. One, the question, and then also the Secretary of Defense's reaction to the question. Now, he had just finished, I think, lambasting the press for leaks of classified information. He said, these leaks are basically continue to be done just to make Donald Trump look bad. But this is classified information, put people in danger, all you people are horrible, the press says, kind of thing. And so he kind of gave that sort of spiel. And so this is sometime later.
It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo Mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
That kid,
of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
About the ventilation shafts on Saturday night, and in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that. So
Absolutely.
We're looking at all aspects of intelligence and making sure we have a sense of what was where.
Okay, so first,
That was a hell of a dodge.
yeah. So what do we think of that answer, boys?
Yeah. That was definitely in my opinion, that was a dodge. That was a personal attack in the place of an answer, which I've seen him do before.
He's Fox News
trying to save
trained.
his own hide. So yeah, exactly. And it makes you laugh. It gets a lot of plays. It clicks on the internet. So it's probably an effective tactic and one that he'll continue to use, I'm sure.
Now, Charlie, you're the worst. What do you think about that?
I thought it was hilarious, but yes, I absolutely agree with Jimmy.
Yeah. So I don't need to switch on this one, but so Trump truthed shortly thereafter. And he said, the cars and small trucks at the site were those of concrete workers trying to cover up the top of the shafts. Nothing was taken out of the facility, would take too long, too dangerous, and very heavy and hard to move. So, Trump...
So that's interesting. I don't disagree. And I don't know the details of what was moved, but the difficulty in moving... that relates to the point you brought up about what Medvedev said, and I wanted to just really quick hit on that. I think that was bluster, and he said things like that in the past. It's a lot of bluster, and that's another one that it's not really backed by any fact. There's only you mentioned Russia, obviously. There's Russia, China, North Korea. Those are really the only countries that. Of many that are lining up, the three of them, and then the logistics nightmare that would go into trying to move a nuclear weapon into Iran and give them the ability to fire it is something that would be seen And then if Iran did take custody of a Russian nuke, what do you think that Israel and the United States would do about that? And so I think that they would have some real big concerns about accepting that gift. So I would say it's probably not realistic that. And they've always, that doesn't really change anything. I mean, they've always had the possibility of being donated a nuke. I mean, they've always been an adversary of the United States, and there are countries like Russia that would love to antagonize us, but something has obviously held them back from donating a nuke, and so I don't think that's changed.
And didn't Pakistan at some point come out and said, like, hell, if Israel does this, we'll nuke them. We'll nuke Israel. And I forget what it was. I think maybe they said if Israel nuked Iran, Pakistan would nuke Israel, something like that. But Pakistan came out early.
Yeah, Pakistan is it's easy to forget that Pakistan is a fundamental Islam or fundamentally Muslim country that were founded on that religion, and so they're that ideology can be lost in modern geopolitics, but they're at the core they are hardcore Muslim.
Do you think we all forget about them because they're so bad at cricket?
Well, because cricket takes 3 days to play a match, I think everybody eventually falls asleep.
We can say.
Is a nuclear bomb a tax write-off?
Yeah. U.S. tax code it is. Yeah. Next door neighbor, he's Team India on cricket, so I'm not about to learn how. I learned that it does change as the hours go on, I guess, as the dirt gets softer where the bowler hits the ball in there, that you have to change. One of the reasons you change your bowlers throughout is because the ground gets harder and softer, and it affects the way the ball bounces. And throughout the 3-day game, you have to really... I mean, it sounds like a coach really has to strategize pretty good on this.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, that's our cricket segment. All right. So Trump goes, they wouldn't take it. And it, I would imagine that so secret site underground, right? So if they got anything in there, we're going to say, well, that's where they have all the 90% enriched uranium. It's not the 60%, it's wherever already. It's fine. That and weapons technology.
Yeah, and that's assuming that they've gone to 90%, which I don't think, we know that they've done that.
Of course, I'm just saying, like, if there's something they're going to be smuggling out of this, and it could be the 60% uranium, but so either way, it's uranium. And it's enriched uranium and theoretical missile systems. You can't really drive those off in a Honda Accord, or even a Toyota Hilux. It's a hell of a truck.
Those are great.
It's a great truck. But, it probably would take something more substantial, and I imagine the technology we have monitoring is not just, just night vision, whatever. I'm sure we have all sorts of layers on that to detect anything radioactive that's going to be climbing out of any of these doors or holes. Because there's just no way that we're days out of a strike on 3 nuclear facilities and we're not monitoring them 24/7 with some sort of whatever that looks for nuclear whatever. Even if it's just even a lens that'll just glow for you, but there's just no way we're not watching for that. It's my thought. Jimmy, what do you feel on that?
I think you're right that there would be a soak, we would call it a soak of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR. And you would definitely be looking closely at something like that if you were going to be undertaking an operation as important and unprecedented and grand in scope as that one. So it's a good assumption that we would be looking very closely at those 3 facilities.
Yeah, I give good assumption. All right, so we drop these bombs, and Trump's like, "Hey, that's it. We're not going to do anything else. We're not at war. We just dropped 6 bombs." And so we all sat there and we go,
"You go to your room."
Yeah. Daddy Trump. But it was Daddy D. But did you see that the NATO guy called Trump Daddy Yeah. So,
Of course he did.
yeah. Then they were asked about it. But we don't have to play. It was a quick one. They were in it. We were talking about schoolyard fights, and sometimes you have to separate them. And then the guy was like, "Oh, he's like, and sometimes Daddy has to say harsh words." Just like, "Yep, here's Daddy." Anyway, all right. So they go, that's it. We really want to call it quits. Trump's yelled at kind of Israel and Iran publicly, saying y'all quit. And so we had a couple rounds. We dropped some bombs. We said y'all quit, and then we negotiated. So then today, Khomeini gave a speech, and so it's he offered his congratulations on the victory over the fallacious Zionist regime. Let's see, with all
Fallacious.
yeah. FA.
Easy, Google.
Maybe it's a typo, though. Who knows what he meant? That printer always wakes up. My congratulations on our dear Iran's victory over the U.S. regime. The U.S. regime entered the war directly because it felt if it didn't, the Zionist regime would be completely destroyed. It entered the war in an effort to save that regime, but achieving nothing. The Islamic Republic delivered a heavy slap to the U.S.'s face. It attacked and inflicted damage on the Al Udeid air base, which is one of the key U.S. bases in the region. The fact that the Islamic Republic has access to key U.S. centers in the region and can take action whenever it deems necessary is significant. Such an action can be repeated in the future, blah, blah, blah. If any more aggression occurs, the enemy will definitely pay a heavy price. Yeah, we didn't surrender. Iranians, a nation of approximately 90 million people, stood together and supported the action of armed forces. The Iranian nation demonstrated its greatness and exceptional character in this event. It showed that when it's necessary, a unified voice will be heard by this nation. At some point, too, he said, I was reading the speech earlier, and this was just kind of the Twitter feed of the speech, but he was saying that basically the U.S. attacks did nothing, and that the U.S. media that's reporting that the attacks did something are the same U.S. media that are saying that Iran's attack on our air bases in Qatar didn't do anything, when really it was devastating to our base in Qatar, which all reports is that we intercepted it, and it was just kind of a thing, yeah. And I think it was one of those, I don't even think Iran really wanted to hit our bases. I think they just had to do an attack so they could do this and claim victory today. And quite frankly, if Israel, America, and Iran all just say they won, and that's legitimately the end of this, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think that's probably what if I had to guess, that's probably something along the lines of what Trump was thinking and going for. I mean, you're right, that was a face-saving measure by Iran. According to Trump, they signaled where they were, when and where they were going to be striking, and
they called Qatar.
And that's something that we've and that's something that we've seen in the past. So probably they did not want to inflict any casualties, because that would have led to an escalation that they probably couldn't handle. So needed to save face, and so from Trump's perspective, he's happy. And it's also telling that the United States just got attacked. That's our air base, that's our military. Iran attacked, and Trump's happy with that. And that's okay. I mean, if you think about it, it's still a win for us. It was a totally worthless attack. It meant nothing. And so it's part of, I think it plays into what his game plan was. Okay, I'm fine. You guys can save face, whatever. I'm going to call you out and make fun of you on social media. And then even kind of like give a little bit of credit to you, and then I'm going to try to talk tough to Israel, and that's when he said the thing about they don't know what they're doing. It all kind of fits that mentality that okay, it's very important now that this stops, because we've entered, and that's probably what my guess. There's a huge step for the United States to enter this conflict. And it was probably the plan to just do short and sharp. That's a term that gets used a lot. And short and sharp. and that was probably the game plan. So it was really important for the United States to be able to back away, and the ceasefire is probably a part of that. And so for Israel, and this goes back to what we're saying about Netanyahu's perspective, which is different from ours. He does not want us to be. If you assume that he is got a longer view on this, he does not want us to back away. And so that's going to play out in some interesting ways in the next few weeks. And not to open up a big can of worms, but you've also got the divide within the Republican Party. You know, there's the side that wants to use American military power to overseas to advance their interests, and there are those that absolutely do not want to get involved in any more foreign wars. And that's going to weigh on Trump. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
And it might be that, it might be that Trump's like, look, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb, and I don't think anybody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And so the reality is that, Israel has, but okay, so when post October 7th, they have opened hell on Gaza. It's not just a response; it's a devastation. It's a leveling devastation of lots of accusations of war crimes, and how can hell get any worse type of thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, direct attack into Iran. Everyone's like, what is this?
And don't forget the Lebanon piece in the middle there. They went after Hezbollah as well.
Well, yeah, and I saw
they killed Nasrallah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the
pagers.
Oh, the pagers!
Crazy.
I forgot about the pagers. Yeah, that was great. The pagers, you gotta just. The pagers.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
that's the stuff of fiction novels, but in reality, there it was.
What about was it Hamas or Hezbollah? The guy, he was in Iran, staying at a guest in their house, and he got taken out by like an explosive that was planted in a residence in Iran like a year or 18 months prior or something like that. There's been some incredible like espionage work by Israel on this, and that kind of stuff, I don't know. I don't even get mad about because it's kind of awesome. It's like, if that's the thing, if all these people that hate each other over there want to keep doing this kind of stuff, whatever. And in all reality, I hope Israel wins, and whatever they do, just leave us out of it, is my whole thing. But so I think with this, Israel starts going into Iran, and everyone's like, what the hell is this? But they take out, they're aiming for air defenses first, so take out, practically all air defenses. And so now, as the United States, you sit there saying, we don't want to be involved. And you go, also, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, well, probably once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Right now, air defenses are not good. There's already an active claim towards nuclear weapons development by an ally. They are already actively attacking these sites. You're practically just providing limited air support on a single mission, and it could mean that when you go back to the table to negotiate with Iran, as opposed to saying, well, they could have a weapon, they could just lie to us, have a weapon in 2 weeks, theoretically, they could be back in the Stone Age as far as nuclear weapons. All the scientists have been taken out. Military leaders were taken out, and then the people that replaced them got taken out. And so you could see from even someone that's saying we don't want to start any new wars, when that same person's also saying Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, this window is not likely to open up again without war. This could have been World War III. And it's one of those things like, when does this window open again without World War III?
Yeah, you could have just given the IDF's pitch to CENTCOM right there. It's like you couldn't say it any better.
Yeah, and so you see how
you're hired.
Yeah, right. But it is, and it is one of those things. It's one of those things. It's a hard pitch because you go and it's a hell of a gamble because of course it could lead to World War III, which would be bad, and then it'd be like, well, was it really worth it? If it doesn't lead to
But it's worth it to the Israelis.
It's always worth it to the Israelis. Yeah, and I saw that the settlers have gone back to the West Bank, and they're now setting fires in the West Bank to capture more / Judea. Of course, it's also called Judea if you're reading the Bible, but West Bank / Judea is burning. It was a Christian settlement too. It was Palestinian Christians. Take that, evangelicals, with your Israel's always right. But all right, go ahead.
No. Whatever I was going to say, it's gone.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, so where we sit today, it looks like everybody's just giving themselves a pat on the back, and I know we're now talking about, the news is about Trump being called daddy at the NATO summit. It's about the New York City mayoral election with the Islamicist filmmaker guy or rapper.
Everyone gets a participation trophy.
Yeah, we all get a participation trophy in World War IIIA.
Right.
But yeah, so it seems like it's like, I don't know, like I keep looking for something that looks like it's popping off, and it's just it looks like it's just kind of done. Right? Legitimately.
I think if you're right, I think if my guess is if the United States can get Israel to back off, Iran's definitely going to want to back off, and then whatever happens will be something months from now, and who knows what that looks like. I mean, it could be something more face-saving measures. It could be a revolt inside of Iran, a new Ayatollah, or a new regime. Lots of things can happen. I think it's gonna, or Israel doesn't back off, and we push. They push this thing to its inevitable conclusion, and we may or may not be involved in it. But assuming that we are successful in getting them to back down and say, okay, no regime change, there's still going to be something. I mean, it's not over. I just what that looks like. It could be more of the traditional Iranian threat network stuff. You got to imagine the inside the borders of Iran, the stability is not great right now. I've seen reports that they're starting to focus on domestic control, and obviously they have a huge amount of leaks. I mean, a lot of these attacks from Israel are coming from inside of their borders. So as you mentioned,
I've seen
who knows what it looks like.
I've seen similar reports of citizens talking about being locked down and just, basically, the Iranian military looking at its citizenry to look for traitors or communications or whatever, where it's like, they're quickly aiming the guns inward to make sure that everybody kind of stays in their place. But it is telling that, like, when you think, like, okay, maybe this thing's done, your first thought goes, unless Israel does something. And it's not unless Iran does something. It's unless Israel does something. It's not Russia, it's not China, it's not North Korea. Excuse me. That's if Israel does something. And then the other, the other thing is just Iran did go, all right, well, we're going to activate our sleeper cells. Excuse me. What do you think about that, Jimmy?
It's definitely a possibility. I don't think they're just bluffing. I don't know any details, but it's a risk that our intelligence community definitely has to stay on top of. They've got the capabilities for a worldwide network, and maybe there are some opportunities for them to collaborate with their traditional enemies like Al Qaeda and ISIS, like you mentioned earlier. They all hate us anyway. So they're a state-sponsored terrorism. They absolutely can. They have done in the past, and so that's another vector that they could pursue. That we should be definitely keeping an eye on.
Well, I did see that ICE arrested something like 100 and something Iranian nationals, like today or this past week or something like that. So I guess we're looking for them. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jimmy. Is there anything that you want to leave the people with?
No, just stay safe, and I appreciate you guys keeping tabs on what's going on, and keeping everybody honest.
And Jimmy says, eat more chicken. That's his parting message.
Drink more Ovaltine.
Drink more Ovaltine. All right. Well, so that's going to do it for this week. Like, subscribe, alerts, all the things. Charlie, you got anything for the people to leave?
No.
No. All right. Well, I guess that'll do it. Until next week, everybody. Rich Chocolatey Ovaltine. All right.